Hi, my name is Hillary Esslinger, and I'm here with Main Access Points to provide you with some training today on opioid overdose response in naloxone use. So just a little bit about MAP. We provide statewide harm reduction services. You can see on the screen that you can get more information on our programming at www.mainaccesspoints.org. So today, as part of our training, we're going to talk a little bit about what an opioid overdose is, what's happening in the body when someone experiences one, how naloxone works, signs and symptoms of an opioid overdose, the steps in opioid overdose response, and then aftercare and support. Following the training, you'll have the opportunity to ask some questions, get more clarity, and you can always feel free to reach out for more training at another time. So to start, an opioid overdose is respiratory failure. It occurs because the opioid is attracted to the brain receptor that is in charge of breathing. So when too much of an opioid is situated on that brain receptor, it's going to slow or stop someone's breathing. And that's the respiratory emergency, the overdose. Naloxone works because it's an opioid antagonist. It likes that brain receptor more than the opioid does. When you give someone naloxone, it bumps the opioid off, sits on the brain receptor, and allows someone's body to start functioning again, to start breathing, for them to become responsive. Naloxone is also known as Narcan. It's a prescription medication, and we prescribe all of the naloxone that we distribute through a standing order. You can also access naloxone at your pharmacy. I just suggest that you go ahead and reach out before and make sure they have it in stock. Naloxone can be injected into the nose, can be sprayed into the nose or injected into the muscle depending on the preparation. And naloxone is only going to work on an opioid. So it's not going to work on a stimulant like methamphetamines or cocaine. It's not going to work on another depressant like a benzodiazepine, Xanax, Klonopin. And while it isn't going to work to reverse an overdose that is not an opiate-based overdose, it's also not going to cause harm. So there's really little risk associated with giving someone naloxone if you think they might be experiencing an overdose. So we distribute two different preparations of naloxone. The intramuscular naloxone, which comes in a vial and syringe, and then the nasal preparation, which is a one-step nasal spray. Moving into signs and symptoms of an opioid overdose. The first sign and symptom is unresponsive to outside stimulus. Someone may be awake but unable to talk. Their breathing is really slow, shallow, erratic, or has completely stopped. Their body is limp. Eventually, respiratory failure will lead to cardiac arrest. And so sometimes we experience someone's heartbeat or pulse to be affected. Sometimes folks, the skin tone becomes very pale or clammy, and there can be blue on the fingertips, under the fingernails, or the lips. And sometimes we experience someone to make a choking or gurgling sound, and that's really the sound of respiratory failure. Now, I think it's important to note that not all signs and symptoms show up in every opioid overdose. So we use these to kind of help assess the situation and move us to the next step. The steps in opioid overdose response that we'll train you on today are checking for responsiveness, calling 911, providing rescue breathing, and administering naloxone. First up, checking for responsiveness. We check for responsiveness a couple ways. First, by using our voice. Hey, are you okay? Hey, I'm going to Narcan you. If someone is unresponsive to voice, we'll go ahead and use touch, a sternum rub, which you make a fist with your hand, you take your knuckles, and you rub up and down on someone's sternum. Now, I think it's important to define what responsiveness is. Responsiveness is not a grunt or a moan. It's really, not someone just kind of shifting from their position. It's really clear communication that someone is okay. Someone communicating that they do not need naloxone, that they are not overdosing. If someone is responsive but we're concerned about them, we should stick with them. If they are unresponsive to voice and unresponsive to touch, we'll move on to the next step in the response, which is calling 911. So certainly you all may have your own protocols for calling 911 in the workplace, on the job site. But this is really a training for when we are not at work, when we don't have those emergency protocols, and we're just looking to get some extra help. This is also a really complicated step for some folks. And so while we have Good Samaritan laws in the state of Maine that should protect some folks from experiencing criminalization at the scene of an overdose, we know that there is a lot of fear of criminalization still. And so we break down this step a little bit. First off, we really only need to give the location of the overdose, so where we are, and explain some symptoms. So my friend is unresponsive, my coworker is not breathing. You don't ever have to use the term overdose if you fear a harmful response from that. Really, it's just most important to be clear about what's going on. Once we've given the location of the emergency, the number that we're calling from, we can go ahead and put our phone on speaker, let dispatch know that we can't answer all of their questions, and they're still going to send someone. So dispatch asks a lot of questions, right? They're trying to help us figure out the next best step. And we really hope that at the end of these trainings, folks leave with the knowledge that they need to be able to respond. So we hope that you can trust your own response. So you don't have to answer all of their questions. You can just move forward with the steps. Certainly, if things become confusing, if you need their help, your phone is on speaker, your hands are free, and you can talk to them and help them, they can help you figure out what the next best step is for you. So we've identified that someone is unresponsive, we've called 911, and now we're going to set someone up for rescue breathing. Ideally, we are getting someone onto the ground. And we start by tipping someone's chin back to open up the airway. And you can see an image of that on your screen. We are going to pinch their nose with our fingertips and make a seal of our mouth to theirs. We will start by giving 2 normal size rescue breaths. We'll then administer naloxone and go back to rescue breathing after. So we'll talk a little bit more about this. I do think it's important to note that right now during COVID, there is risk of transmission of COVID through rescue breathing. So if it is not safe for you to do rescue breathing right now, we're going to want to go ahead and give naloxone and call 911. If you do feel safe doing rescue breathing, maybe using a mask, maybe using a CPR mask, which we also distribute and are happy to provide you with. So we've identified that someone is unresponsive. We've called 911. We've given 2 normal size rescue breaths. And now we're going to move on to the next step, which is giving naloxone. And I'm going to train you on both the intramuscular and the nasal preparation. So starting with the intramuscular preparation. So 1 vial is 1 dose. It's pre-measured to 1 milliliter. There are 2 vials, so 2 doses in each kit that we give out. And our kits look like this. So just to note, each vial has that orange cap. We're going to flick that off with our thumb so that the dark gray circle is exposed. And that's rubber. So we can puncture through the rubber with the syringe to draw up the medication. The syringes that come in our kits are intramuscular syringes, so they are long. They are meant to get into the muscle. And, just a tip, each vial has that label but it also has a window. And we can face that window towards us to make sure that the tip of the syringe is always submerged in the naloxone. And that's how we're going to draw up the medication. So we take the syringe and put it into the vial. And we can see that if the syringe is right above that metal rim, we're going to be able to draw up the naloxone. If it was way up here, we would just be drawing up air. So we're going to make sure the tip of the syringe is in the naloxone, and we're going to press back on the plunger to draw up the medication. So the medication will go from the vial into the barrel of the syringe. If there is some air in the syringe, we want to push that out by pushing in on the plunger until a little naloxone comes out the top, and then we're ready to administer. You can see on the image on your screen, there's a figure. There are 4 red circles on that figure. Those are really great sites to administer naloxone. So we're looking at the thigh or the upper arm. At a 90-degree angle, we are going to administer the naloxone. We push in through the layers of clothing, and then we push in on the syringe, on the plunger, until the naloxone makes its way from the barrel into their body. So we're administering in and pushing in on the plunger. Just to note, this syringe is going to go through jeans, it's going to go through Carhartts, it's not going to go through thermal snow pants and Carhartts, right? So if someone has a lot of layers on, we're going to want to expose the site or find a different site where there are less layers. So moving on to the nasal preparation. The nasal comes in a package that looks like this. In a box, there are 2 of these preparations in each box. So 2 doses. Each one of these is 1 dose. You will see that it says peel here. You're going to peel back on the back of the packaging, and you're able to take the nasal out. Once you have the nasal out, it's ready to use. There's no cap or anything. So you take the nozzle, put it up their nostril, and push in on the plunger. So this works kind of like a Flonase. It sprays into the nasal cavity, through the nose, makes its way through the mucous membranes to the brain receptor where it will have the desired effect. This does not require someone to inhale the medication, right? Because we know one of those signs and symptoms is that someone's not breathing. If we're giving a second dose of the nasal, we're going to switch nostrils just in case there's a blockage or any sort of damage. So to recap, we have checked for responsiveness. We've called 911. We've given 2 normal size rescue breaths. We've administered 1 dose of naloxone, and now we're going to wait 2 to 3 minutes between doses. And we wait 2 to 3 minutes between doses because it just takes time for someone's body to absorb the medication and for it to make its way to the brain receptor. So if we were to give someone 1 dose or 3 doses in that first 2 to 3 minutes, it's not going to work faster. So we wait 2 to 3 minutes, and while we wait the 2 to 3 minutes between doses, we're going to continue with rescue breathing. Again, making sure that their chin is tipped back, plugging their nose with our fingertips, making a seal of our mouth to theirs, and now we will give 1 breath every 5 seconds. So breath, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, breath. And we can continue in the pattern of 1 breath every 5 seconds for as long as it takes for someone to be responsive and breathing on their own, or until that 2 to 3 minutes is up, in which case we will give a second dose of naloxone. And we will continue in that pattern of 1 dose of naloxone every 2 to 3 minutes with rescue breathing in between for as long as it takes for someone to be responsive or for MedQ to show up. So, final recap. We are checking for responsiveness. If someone is unresponsive, we're calling 911. We are setting them up for rescue breathing, giving 2 rescue breaths, administering 1 dose of naloxone, and then waiting 2 to 3 minutes between doses. So after someone has received naloxone, we like to talk a little bit about aftercare. It's important that we stick with someone for 60 to 90 minutes after they've received naloxone. Naloxone can wear off between 30 and 45 minutes, and we want to make sure that we're there to respond should someone move back into an overdose. We also really want to encourage folks not to use during that time. Naloxone puts someone into withdrawal, so they will be experiencing withdrawal symptoms. And how you fix withdrawal is by using, right? But for as long as that naloxone is on the brain receptor for 30 to 45 minutes, they are not going to get any relief by using. The opioid is going to continue to bounce off. But when the naloxone wears off, if there are more opioids in their system, it can reattach and they can experience an overdose again. So this time of aftercare is really about trusting that someone can let you know what they need, sticking with them, and showing up with care for them. So that's really the training for today. I will open it up for questions, and I really hope that folks can follow up if they are looking for their own prescription supply of naloxone. Happy to get that in the mail to you. Also happy to always provide aftercare and support to you individually and also for your workplaces. Again, you can reach out to Maine Access Points by checking out our website at maineaccesspoints.org or by calling us at 207-319-8823. Thanks so much.